Yes, I attempted to do Nosferatu from the original, and it didn't really work out. I tried to make it work. It works in a weird, bizarre. It doesn't. It's okay. In the world of cinema, few images are as hauntingly iconic as that of Count Orlok, or how many people know him,
Nosferatu!
emerging from the shadows, fangs bared and fingers clawed, ready to strike. It's a figure we've seen 3 times over the last century, each one a uniquely unsettling interpretation, as if the vampire himself refuses to fade into darkness. Orlok's sinister silhouette is no ordinary monster. He is horror stripped down to its purest form. There are no capes, no seductive charm, which that's up for debate. I mean, beauty is subjective, obviously, as you can see. Just a creature who is unapologetically monstrous. Where other vampires may lure their victims with sophistication, Orlok is animalistic, grotesque, a creature born from nightmare rather than myth. And this image of the vampire, born in shadow, silent as the grave, captured the world's imagination when it first crept into theaters in 1922. But Orlok didn't stop there. Through lawsuits, lost footage, and time itself, he has survived, clawing his way back onto our screens again and again. The character has grown into something far more than a figure of terror. He's become a cinematic legend. Each retelling brings a new layer, transforming him from silent monster to existential symbol, reflecting our fears across generations, shifting yet remaining steadfastly unkillable. Today, as a new Nosferatu prepares to rise, it's clear this creature of the night has transcended his own origins to become a touchstone in horror, a figure that not only lurks in the shadows of film history, but stands at its forefront, casting an immortal shadow across the genre. So, let's take a journey down a creepy, shadowy hallway of history as we explore the origins and evolution of the notorious Nosferatu. Let's start where the story itself begins, not with Nosferatu, but with Bram Stoker's Dracula, a novel so influential that for over a century it has inspired countless adaptations. Yet when director F.W. Murnau and production company Prana Film sought to bring this vampire tale to life in 1922, they did so without permission from the Stoker estate. In an act of, let's call it creative liberty, they decided to reimagine things. But before that, in case you didn't know, Dracula, written by Irish author Bram Stoker in 1897, is a story of Count Dracula's attempt to move from Transylvania to England to spread his undead curse and the group of people who band together to stop him. The novel is structured as an epistolary narrative told through a series of letters, diary entries, and newspaper clippings. This format creates an eerie, almost voyeuristic tone, drawing readers into the characters' personal experiences and escalating fear. Dracula is more than just a tale of terror. It reflects Victorian anxieties about immigration, disease, and the clash between modern science and ancient superstition. Count Dracula himself embodies the fears of foreign invasion and moral corruption, preying upon England's vulnerability with his unnatural powers. The novel achieved moderate success upon publication, but gained legendary, dare I say, immortal status through its adaptations on stage and screen, beginning with early silent films and growing with each retelling. Stoker's Dracula established many of the conventions we associate with vampires today: sleeping in coffins, fear of sunlight, and aversion to garlic and crosses. Yes, we all are aware of that. Stoker's Count Dracula has become the archetype for all vampires that followed, embedding himself in pop culture and horror as one of literature's most iconic monsters. And while Dracula may be the one everyone knows, Nosferatu lurks just beneath the surface, haunting us century after century. And like Nosferatu, you can get a lot done before the sun rises, like pressing the like button and subscribing to the channel. Please, you can tell I obviously need the help with this. You can tell I obviously need the help with this with my production value. Yeah, that's definitely gonna haunt me more than it's gonna haunt you, believe it or not. Please, the channel could use a little life. And let me know in the comments which Nosferatu is your favorite, or might become your favorites. If you don't, Count Orlok will come to your bedside and stare at you. Or worse, I'll come to your bedside dressed as this and stare at you, relentlessly telling you to like and subscribe to the channel, thirsty for your attention and your views.
Scaring me.
So yeah, I don't think you want that. Just like and subscribe to this video. All right, moving on. Now let's fast forward 24 years later to the foundation of Prana Film, a production company founded by Aubin Grau and Enrico Deichmann. This production company was essentially developed to create Murnau's film. Grau, an artist and alleged occultist, had a personal interest in mysticism, spiritualism, and the concept of vampirism, which was a popular topic in early 20th century European folklore and the arts. During World War I, Grau reportedly encountered a Serbian farmer who claimed his father was a vampire during World War I, sparking Grau's fascination with bringing a vampire story to the screen. The choice of adapting Dracula specifically made sense for Prana Film's vision, as Bram Stoker's novel had already gained popularity and established many of the defining characteristics of the vampire myth. Dracula embodied the supernatural themes that fascinated Grau, and the tale of a vampire's invasion into society resonated with post-war anxieties about disease, death, and foreign influence. Grau saw Dracula not just as a horror story, but as a vehicle to explore darker existential fears prevalent in Germany at the time, tapping into both cultural curiosity and the emerging genre of horror in cinema. However, the path to a Dracula adaptation would prove to be a not-so-magical experience for the production. At the time, Dracula was under copyright protection, and obtaining adaptation rights required negotiation with the Stoker estate. Prana Film proceeded with an unauthorized adaptation, altering character names and settings. Instead of Stoker's suave, aristocratic vampire, Nosferatu was reworked into something entirely different. Count Dracula became Count Orlok, a gaunt, rat-like figure who's really headed that rat boy beauty trend, if you know what I mean. He was the first. He set the standard of the rat boy aesthetic and appeal, more monster than man. I do not mean to roast this man or undead thing. I don't mean to roast him. All right, anyway. While this might seem like a necessary evasion tactic, the shift brought an entirely new image of a vampire to cinema. A creature whose menace came not from seductive charm, but from sheer otherworldly horror. Again, let me just say, I don't mean to read this vampire, I'm just stating what was on screen. Okay.
He was so ugly that everyone died. The end.
Additionally, Jonathan Harker became Thomas Hutter, and the setting shifted from England to the fictional German town of Wiesbaden. Despite these changes, the narrative closely followed Stoker's novel. This decision would later lead to legal action taken by Florence Stoker, Bram Stoker's widow. She sued for copyright infringement and won, which resulted in a court order to destroy all copies of the film.
That was an overreaction.
However, some prints survived, allowing Nosferatu to become a classic in horror cinema. Thank Nosferatu that some people decided to go against the law to preserve this artistry and masterpiece of cinema. But before all that, let's explore how F.W. Murnau's Nosferatu manifested before 1920s cinemagoers' eyes. Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau, or F.W. Murnau, as we know him, was the visionary behind Nosferatu. Born in 1888 in Germany, Murnau's passion for the arts led him to the burgeoning world of cinema. By the early 1920s, he had already directed several films, but it was his collaboration with Prana Film that would birth his magnum opus. Although I do have to say, now going back over my writing, I might have to disagree with that, but that's for another video. Filming commenced in 1921, utilizing real locations across Germany and Slovakia to enhance authenticity. Murnau's vision emphasized a naturalistic approach, contrasting with the stylized sets typical of Expressionism. The eerie Carpathian Mountains and the medieval architecture of Wismar and Lübeck provided a haunting backdrop, grounding the supernatural tale in a tangible reality. F.W. Murnau's use of German expressionist elements to evoke horror and a surreal atmosphere came to life with the assistance of cinematographers Arno Wagner and Gunther Krampf, who employed innovative techniques such as negative exposures and fast motion sequences to create the film's haunting visual style. Murnau's direction infused the film with stark contrast, distorted shadows, and surreal landscapes, mirroring the internal turmoil of the characters. These stylistic choices not only heightened the horror, but also influenced future cinematic techniques. Although these methods contributed to the unsettling atmosphere that defines Nosferatu, it went beyond just creative ambition. Murnau captured a sense of unease, a world slipping into darkness, which mirrored Germany's own post-World War I trauma. Central to Nosferatu's enduring terror is Max Schreck's portrayal of Count Orlok. Schreck, whose name fittingly means fright in German, and not Shrek, as in the green creature we all know and love today, was a theater actor known for his unique looks and dedication to his craft. In fact, his portrayal of Orlok was so disturbingly convincing that legends circulated claiming he might actually be a real vampire. Schreck leaned into this mystery, keeping his private life obscured and fueling speculation. Opposite Schreck was Greta Schroeder, cast as Ellen Hutter, Orlok's doomed obsession. Schroeder, an established actress of the silent era, brought a poignant vulnerability to her role, her expressive eyes conveying a depth of emotion that transcended the silent medium. For Greta Schroeder, Nosferatu offered her a role that went against the classic damsel in distress. Her character, knowingly sacrificing herself to save her husband, became an embodiment of fate, a figure facing death with full acceptance and embrace. This, paired with Schreck's monstrous portrayal, gave the film an unforgettable intensity. Upon its release in 1922, Nosferatu garnered attention for its innovative approach to horror, though detailed records of its initial critical reception are scarce. The film premiered in Germany and was screened in various European countries before legal actions by Bram Stoker's widow. Florence immediately filed a copyright infringement lawsuit, and as a result, the courts ordered that all copies of the film be destroyed. But as if by some supernatural twist of fate, a few prints survived. It's unknown exactly who or how the few prints survived, but it's believed that some prints had already been distributed internationally before the legal action, making their recall and destruction challenging. Additionally, film collectors and archivists may have clandestinely retained copies, recognizing the film's artistic value. This allowed Nosferatu to spread internationally, slowly growing into a cult classic, a symbol of cinema's power to endure, much like the vampire it depicted. Today, Nosferatu is seen as the first true horror film and a pioneering work in cinematic artistry, influencing everyone from Hitchcock to Lynch. Before we gravitate towards the remakes, I'm quickly going to go over the reemergence of Nosferatu before Herzog's remake. I feel like this part of history isn't highlighted or mentioned as often as its conception, destruction, and then remake. It's suddenly like it just came back. It just manifested itself out of nowhere. And I watched this in school when I was going over film, and nothing was really mentioned about, this in-between space and time. But I'm not going to blame my professors, though, because we were going rapidly through a lot of history, a lot of prominent and important movies and film that we had to examine in a very short time, in one semester. After the court-ordered destruction of Nosferatu, some copies of the film were hidden away and spared. I'm not sure how people gauged how long it was okay before, redistributing and showing them again and not face penalties, but that's what happened. Maybe the death of Florence Stoker in 1937 had something to do with it, or the much more likely expiration of the copyright. Yes, if you didn't know, copyrights only last a certain amount of time. They are not forever. Even as the fall of the silent film began and the rise of the talkies, that's what they used to call them back then, Nosferatu somehow dug its way out of its dusty film grave. The Cinémathèque Française, established in 1936, played a pivotal role in preserving and showcasing classic films, including Nosferatu. Cinémathèque obtained the film from the
Redacted, but a film archive from a regime that made a former Austrian painter its leader.
very, 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 very bad, okay? During World War II, in 1947, the Cinémathèque provided a copy of Nosferatu to the Museum of Modern Art, or MoMA, in New York, facilitating its exhibition and study in the United States. This collaboration between the Cinémathèque and MoMA was instrumental in reintroducing Nosferatu to international audiences. There's little information available about its display and screenings in the 1950s, but it is believed that Nosferatu's significance was recognized during this time, leading to increased screenings and exhibitions throughout the 1960s, first being widely distributed by Atlas Film in 1965 and being televised on national German television in German in 1969. I personally think a good number of silent film imagery and appreciation began re-emerging in the late 1960s and early 1970s. We can see in advertising across various fashion and makeup companies, one in particular I have from the 1970s, Biba Cosmetics, which I have to get right now. It's an eyebrow pencil. I'm guessing these are like eyeshadow thingies they used to use back in the day. These are also, I think, just like blush brushes they used to use. They used to have, I think it's a gift tab. Shout out to the Biba Boys. I think that's what they're called on Etsy. But really good condition. I utilized an Art Deco aesthetic and makeup looks that are straight out of Greta Garbo or a Clara Bow silent film. I mean, even Stevie Nicks did Garbo makeup as part of her signature makeup look in the 70s and early 80s, and I think also literally does a Garbo silent bit in the Fleetwood Mac music video for her, problematically titled single off of Mirage. So I think on The Wild Heart she has a literal song called like Garbo or something. So all this circulation and popularity, I believe, had an influence, intentional or not, on Herzog's decision to remake the film. Before we get into detailing the actual film, let's give some background on the director himself, Werner Herzog, a German filmmaker renowned for his unique, intense style that often blurs the lines between reality and fiction. He was born in 1942 in Munich. Herzog was part of the New German Cinema movement in the 1960s and 70s, which was a group of directors who sought to reinvent German film after World War II by challenging traditional storytelling and incorporating social, psychological, and existential themes. Herzog's films are known for their exploration of human resilience, obsession, and the extremes of nature. He has directed over 60 films across various genres, including narrative features, documentaries, and short films. Most of his work, though, focuses on individuals who struggle against overwhelming odds or who are driven by all-consuming passion. Before Nosferatu the Vampire, Herzog's films included Signs of Life in 1968, or Gier, the Wrath of God in 1972, and one of my favorites, Heart of Glass in 1976. Herzog's style is marked by his use of natural landscapes to heighten emotional tension. He frequently shoots on location in extreme environments, which enhances the sense of realism and immersion. His cinematography is often stark and atmospheric, framing characters within vast, sometimes hostile, landscapes that highlight their isolation or struggle. Herzog is also known for his ecstatic truth approach.
A deeper truth, an ecstatic truth. I've been after balance, after something like justice within pictures. very strange to explain it, and I've hardly ever seen a film that has.
In Nosferatu the Vampire in 1979, Herzog brings his thematic style to the horror genre, emphasizing the emotional and existential horror of vampirism rather than focusing solely on scares. With atmospheric locations, haunting landscapes, and a focus on the tragic nature of Count Dracula's immortality, Herzog's remake remains deeply faithful to Murnau's original, while reflecting Herzog's philosophical perspective on isolation and morality. I also just love the eerie quality and surreal aesthetics of this film. You know, I love surrealism and weird stuff, so yeah. I love this film and I really do enjoy his work. The cold and muted out coloring really brings the themes of isolation, fear, and dread to new heights. The cultural resurgence of Nosferatu in the 1970s inspired Herzog to reimagine Murnau's classic. Herzog's intention was not to just recreate the film, but to explore themes of loneliness, death, and existential dread, with a style that reflected his own hauntingly meditative approach.
Like a theater, like a stage almost. And that's what I like. It's very stylized, very idyllical. Nosferatu, in my opinion, is the most important film ever made in Germany. So this is some sort of a challenge. And it establishes some sort of a link between the great expressionist cinema that we had in Germany and our film renaissance now. It is a film that is beyond my own private person.
Herzog's Nosferatu the Vampire was produced by Werner Herzog Film Production, Gaumont and Schweiz Deutsch Fernsehen. I mean, please just give me some forgiveness, give me some grace, some leeway for that probably horrendously pronounced thing. I try, okay? The film was shot on location in various parts of Europe, including the Netherlands, Czechoslovakia, and Germany. Herzog aimed to capture the eerie atmosphere of the original while infusing it with his unique cinematic vision. His remake was both a homage to Murnau's original and a standalone piece that contributed to the vampire genre. And it also has talking. Casting in this film is now a little tainted, I would say, giving the rep of the main actor, who I'm really not going to talk about much in this video. Sorry to disappoint y'all out there that want me to, but I will not. But Isabelle Adjani is a queen, and we've mentioned her before in a previous video. You can watch after this one right here. The film was well received by critics and audiences alike, praised for its atmospheric cinematography and the haunting performances given by the actors. Actually, the screenplay was even adapted into a novel in 1979 by Paul Murnau. And then there is the sequel only in name that was released in 1988 called Nosferatu in Venice. Kind of like a Russ Meyer Beyond the Valley of the Dolls kind of thing, you know? Which I also recommend you watch because I love it, and I think it's good, and I love Russ Meyer. Okay. It has since been regarded as one of the most significant horror films of the late 20th century, influencing subsequent interpretations of vampire lore in cinema. Nosferatu the Vampire has served as both homage and reimagining, renewing interest in the original Nosferatu and underscoring the vampire story's timeless and ageless, am I right? Appeal. It's a great retelling, honestly, and I just can't get over how good it looks. If you've been on this channel long enough, you know how I feel about aesthetics. Having seen both versions of this film, I feel more connected to the original in some weird way, but Herzog's version is usually appetizing, with no pun intended on that, and it possesses an intoxicating energy. The original has all the spooks, you know, the shadows, the jumps, and the haunting atmosphere that goes beyond its silence. So this is not a remake or anything, but it is Nosferatu adjacent. And I really like it, and I don't really hear anybody talking about this much. So I thought I'd mention it because I think it's very underrated and overlooked. So you know how earlier I mentioned that Max Schreck, Count Orlok, was so great in his role that there started to be rumors that he was an actual vampire? Well, Shadow of the Vampire in 2000 supports a timeline in which the rumors prove to be true. The film imagines that Max Schreck was a real vampire hired by Murnau to capture true horror on screen. Directed by Edmund Elias Murray, a director I only know for this film, but who apparently directed music videos for Marilyn Manson during the Antichrist Superstar era. What? That's crazy connection. And written by Stephen Katz. The film takes a meta approach, blending historical elements with dark, comedic fiction. The film was produced by Saturn Films with Nicolas Cage serving as a producer, whose Pyramid I saw in the New Orleans graveyard with Marie Laveau. John Malkovich stars as director F.W. Murnau, while Willem Dafoe delivers a compelling performance as Max Schreck. Dafoe's portrayal earned him critical acclaim, including an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. The production utilized various locations in Luxembourg to create the 1920s German film set, aiming to capture the atmosphere of the original Nosferatu production. The film garnered positive reviews from critics who praised its inventive premise and standout performances, particularly Dafoe's. While Shadow of the Vampire is not a direct sequel or remake, it serves as an homage to Nosferatu by delving into the mythology surrounding its production. The film blurs the lines between fiction and reality, adding a supernatural twist to the making of the original vampire classic. By doing so, it enriches the Nosferatu lore and offers a unique perspective on the enduring fascination with Murnau's masterpiece.
I'd like some makeup.
Well, you don't get any.
Right.
Robert Eggers claimed for his distinctive approach to horror films like The Witch or Vitch in 2015 and The Lighthouse in 2019, an unintentionally hilarious A24 film.
You don't like me cooking?
Look, I know it's supposed to be serious, surreal, conceptual, all that kind of stuff, but it is kind of fucking funny. And I love that about it, okay? I'm not a normal movie watcher or movie goer, okay? I think a lot of stuff has humor and can simultaneously exist with seriousness, but when you're watching this film for the first time with people who aren't into cinema, who aren't into film, who are just there because you're like, let's watch this film, making light of it and making jokes kind of makes it more enjoyable, I think, for the people, because there are scenes in there which, if you're not prepared in a filmic sort of surreal expectation, that can catch you way off guard. People who have no interest in weird cinema, it's gonna be good to be like, you know, hey, it's not that serious.
It's not that deep, my lord.
Okay? Plus, Robert Pattinson, this is like the 50,000th movie where he's done that in a movie, which the last one I can remember was when he was Salvador Dali. So yeah, anyway, getting back to Eggers, he has long harbored a passion for remaking F.W. Murnau's 1922 silent classic Nosferatu. Eggers' fascination with the original film began in his youth, and at 17 he directed a stage adaptation of Nosferatu in the style of The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, another film we've discussed on this channel that you can watch after this right here, reflecting his deep-seated admiration for German expressionist cinema. I have to say, me and Eggers, we got a lot in common, a lot. Eggers' intent to remake Nosferatu was first announced in 2015, shortly after the success of The Witch. However, the project faced delays due to various challenges, including casting changes and scheduling conflicts. If only it could have worked out so we could have hit that remake with the 100th anniversary of the original, am I right? That would have been so cool. In 2022, the project gained momentum with the casting of Bill Skarsgård, aka Pennywise, and I'm just saying this now. I think we have a contender for the newest horror guy that appears in all the stuff, horror villain, a horror movie icon, legend in the making. Come on, William, just keep taking these spooky roles. As Count Warlock and Lily Rose Depp, who I only know as JD's daughter, okay? I know she's in my generation, but you know, I haven't really watched anything she's done. I know she did The Idol, but I wasn't really interested in watching that. No problem with her. Like, it's just, I haven't watched her stuff, so yeah. As Ellen Hunter. We also get Willem Dafoe in here as Professor Alban Eberhard von Franz, who, if you remember, is Nosferatu adjacent in the shadow of the vampire. Another reason I love Eggers. Filming commenced in early 2023, with principal photography taking place in Prague and other locations in the Czech Republic. The production ramped in May 2023. Eggers' film takes on Nosferatu as a filmic ghost that has haunted him since childhood. Eggers' dedication to period accuracy and practical effects led him to again collaborate with cinematographer Jaren Blask, who he frequently collaborates with, to capture the film's visual aesthetic. The production aims to honor the original's expressionist style while introducing contemporary elements. Eggers has expressed a deep connection to Nosferatu, stating, "It's a film that has haunted me since I was a kid." He views the remake as a passion project, aiming to pay homage to Murnau while exploring new thematic depths. Eggers' meticulous attention to historical detail and atmosphere is expected to bring a fresh perspective to the classic tale. Nosferatu is scheduled for theatrical release on December 25th, 2024. Later this month, people, get ready for your holly jolly spooky Christmas. By the way, I'm not sponsored by this film or anything. I just love Nosferatu, okay? And I knew it was coming out. So, yeah. Should have said that in the beginning, probably. The film has generated significant anticipation, me included, with early trailers receiving positive reactions for their atmospheric and unsettling tone. Fans and critics alike are eager to see how Eggers' interpretation will contribute to the legacy of this enduring horror classic. This version promises to introduce Nosferatu to a new generation, continuing the legacy of the vampire story over a century later. In this video exploring the legacy of Nosferatu, we've journeyed from F.W. Murnau's original 1922 film, an unauthorized adaptation that birthed horror on screen, through to Werner Herzog's 1979 haunting homage, the darkly humorous twist in Shadow of the Vampire, and finally to Robert Eggers' upcoming reimagining. Each adaptation builds on the eerie foundations laid by Murnau, weaving new layers into the story of the timeless vampire. Herzog amplified the existential dread, while Shadow of the Vampire blurred lines between fiction and reality. Now, Eggers' version promises to honor the spirit of Nosferatu with a modern and tense atmosphere and an ensemble cast. This saga has proven that Count Orlok, with his clawed hands and insatiable hunger, is a monster who can't be confined to a single era. He's a figure that evolves, mirroring our own changing fears across generations. So if there's one thing to take from this journey, it's that Nosferatu isn't just a horror film. It's a haunting echo that refuses to fade, forever lurking in the shadows of cinema. Get it? Because it echoes? It echoes? The character of Nosferatu and the film itself have become symbols of horror's power to captivate, frighten, and reinvent itself. A legend that refuses to rest in peace. But that's just my take on the undead vamp. Want to hear yours in the comments below. What do you think? Do you like the original? Do you like Herzog's version? Or do you think this story is a tale as old as time and should be buried in a coffin encased with garlic to truly put it to eternal rest? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every bit helps. And ring my bell like your favorite disco diva, because I couldn't think of a good thing for this video to theme it with, so you don't miss any of the fun that we have on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! I can't wave because I don't have it ruins the illusion. Look at that. When people say I'm pale, I'm like, sure I'm pale, but I'm not that pale. Am I right? When I think pale, I think undead. Okay. That's a wrap. Undead, undead, undead. I feel like I'm Peter Murphy or something, like a bad Peter Murphy, but like, you know, Bauhaus realness right here. Anyway, I'm trying to do my best Nosferatu voguing. Have you guys seen that video? It just popped up randomly in my feed for some reason. 15 years later, he's a legend, he's an icon, and he is the moment 15 years later. Just goes to show. Immortal, baby. Immortal.